Hey guys, what's up? It's your man. Just thought I would talk about a recent report that came out from the National Bank of Canada that basically boiled down how much time it takes for you to save up for a down payment when you're earning the median salary here in the entire country of Canada. And I gotta say, I love this report because it really puts things into perspective. You know, I'm not so good at the maths, and so I like things to be boiled down straight to the point so that we could just keep moving, you know what I mean? And it kind of reminds me of that time when the government mandated that credit cards must disclose the number of years it takes for people to pay off their entire credit card debt if you are only paying the minimum down payment, which is awesome. That's useful to us, right? I do have a little bit of a bone to pick in terms of the numbers and the salary expectations that they used for this report, because I just don't see it being that relevant here in Toronto necessarily. And of course, shout out to our friends over at the Huffington Post Canada for doing this article and post. And of course, it's not surprising anyone, these numbers are going to be very alarming in Toronto and Vancouver, which are not only some of the most expensive markets in the country, they're some of the most expensive in the world. So you can expect that the numbers are going to be very alarming. And of course, we always have to put it into the perspective of how it's being done in Toronto, because of course, Toronto is the middle of the country. Like, geographically. And while I will admit that prices are starting to get out of control here in the city of Toronto and in the GTA, and it's hitting a fever pitch always in the coldest months of the year, especially for houses, which is why you need to hit that subscribe button and like my channel, throw us up a like, or even feel free to leave us a comment, because it helps with the algorithms. But the truth is, there's still lots of opportunity here in Toronto. You just gotta be a little bit more reasonable. You gotta be not so picky, and you definitely need to move fast, especially when it comes to buying a house, because there's a lot of steps we have to get through to even get you at the offer table. So we'll get into a little bit of that right after this, guys. Okay, so that report came out a few days ago, and I knew it was going to be all over the media streams, you know, traditional media streams like TV and newspapers. But how about the YouTube take on things? How about the real mans who's out there working in the field trying to serve all y'all in the real estate business? I just want to point out, you know, not flaws. I don't want to be critical of the report because it's a really good report, but the bare knuckles of it all is that they used a number of 6% as a down payment, which is very, very low. I assume the 5% is the minimum down payment with mortgage insurance, plus 1% for closing costs like land transfer and lawyer costs. And so if we get right into the numbers for Toronto necessarily, and then they use the number of 60,000 as a median household for all across Canada, not just Toronto. And they basically pointed out that here in Toronto, it would take you roughly 5 years to save up a 6% down payment if your median household was $60,000. I don't know how many households that are earning $60,000 gross pay or even net pay is able to buy a house here in Toronto. Let's just be real. You know, that's not going to happen anymore. So what it basically pointed out is that here in Toronto, it would take 5 years to save up for a down payment at 6% down for a condo. But then if you wanted to be a little bit saucy and spicy and you think you can go for a house here in Toronto, it would take you 24 years to save up that money for that 6% down payment. I'm pretty sure by that time you won't even want the house anymore. Of course, we assume that they're factoring in normal costs of living like groceries, entertainment, you know, all the other expenses that are eating into your income. And then they also assume a 10% savings rate, which sounds like a lot because Asians usually have that in their sofa cushions. And even more shocking in Vancouver, which we all know is the most ridiculous housing market in Canada and usually in the top 3 of ridiculousness around the world, where it also takes 5 years to save up for a condo. And then check this out for houses. It would take 409 months, which basically translates to about 34 years before you can save up to buy a detached house in Vancouver. You'd be retired before you could buy that house. What do you even need that house for? You know, your back's gonna hurt, your knees are gonna hurt, you can't mow the lawn. But here's a couple of other cities that I will point out. So in Hamilton, it takes 3 years to save up for a condo. As we all know, Hamilton has gotten quite expensive. And then it takes a modest 5 years to save up for a house in Hamilton. In Montreal, just under 3 years for a condo and just over 3 years for a house. The numbers are a little wonky there in Montreal. Let's finish this one in the car, shall we? Calgary is less than 2 years for a condo and just under 3 years for a house. And Edmonton, which is the standout, where it takes just over a year to purchase a condo and only 2.5 years for a house. Well, properties are very cheap in Edmonton. That's good to know. So yeah, it's really good numbers and stats to give us a sense of just how long it takes for people to save up and get, you know, the minimum down payment to get into a property. But again, like I always say in my videos, I don't recommend that we bulk everything up together, like the entire real estate industry in all of Canada, and try to compare it against Toronto, which is a bit of a different story. And it is the same for all other major cities across Canada too. Because obviously Toronto gets a whole lot more immigration and migration here because there's just a whole lot more employment. So people move here specifically for the jobs, and then the natural inclination is if you're stable, then you would want to purchase a place before the properties get too expensive. And Toronto happens to be one of the warmer cities in Canada to live in. So that median income of $60,000 that they used for this report, you know, may work well in smaller cities like Moncton or Kamloops, BC. And of course, the costs of living are much higher here in Toronto than some of the other smaller cities across Canada. And so for a household where, let's say, there's only one breadwinner and they make around $60,000 a year, or it could be two people making $30,000 a year. So if we do the quick math, we can see that those are basically minimum wage rates. But I think what the pandemic has made clear is that people who are sort of in the lower income range are not even thinking about purchasing a house, so it's not even a factor for them. But the truth is, the clients that I work with are either one of two things, right? They're professionals, they make quite a bit of money, household income is over 100K, and in some cases over 200K, especially if you have two full-time parents working. So if we do the quick math on it, what minimum wage is, I think $14 an hour right now. You know, $14 an hour is just really just subsistence living, right? So, but if we calculate that out for over a year, it's about $30,000 gross. And then if there's two parents that are earning basically minimum wage, you know, yeah, there's enough for you to sustain a living and to pay rent and keep a roof over your kids' heads, but it's certainly not enough for you to keep up with the housing market, you know, specifically houses, freehold properties, and condos. You might be able to eke into it if you've got okay credit and no debt and a big chunk of savings or some money coming from family. Let's be honest here, right? Because the income alone for a household that only has $60,000 of earning power is not going to be enough for you possibly to even qualify for a mortgage. So yeah, the study was good, it's interesting, it's fun to talk about, it's definitely very alarming and very shocking, and it just doesn't apply here to the two most expensive cities in Toronto and Vancouver, which are not only expensive nationally but internationally as well too. You know, I want you guys to watch my show not just for the insights and the things that I'm going to bring to the table with respect to real estate, but there might be some things that we could talk about from a personal development point of view, especially possibly if I'm thinking about hiring agents and putting them under my team so that we can work and train them up to be great agents here at Selling Toronto. But honestly, if your income is low, what you can do is you got to work hard, right? You got to bust your butt, you know, put as many credentials behind your name as possible, or find a side hustle. Learn how to create and run a business on the side, because that's essentially one of the most important skills you're going to need to have going into the future. So now is a great time to learn about your finances, to, you know, slim down, cut everything down, cut all the fat off the meat, and then look to improve yourself, right? Improve your skills. If you're in computer science or coding or creating anything online, you're going to do well right now. And that's sort of the case for you in Toronto. But just, you know, don't place yourself in this victim mentality like, oh, I'm never going to afford to be able to buy something. Oh, it's too expensive. You know, when you're just sitting there complaining and not doing anything, you know, nothing's going to happen for you. So it's important to make some moves to improve yourself, especially use this time right now to improve yourself. Either it's learning a new skill, developing a new hobby, which could turn into a skill, and see how far you can take it. Honestly, if you're bored right now, you should be running a business. So set out a plan, think about how you're going to do it, how you're going to save up the money, how you're going to improve your credit score, and let's get right into it, guys. Let's keep things moving, you know what I mean? Toronto and the GTA still has plenty of amazing properties and good neighborhoods that you could still buy in. That's why they're called up and coming neighborhoods. So if you're thinking you got a $500,000-$600,000 budget and you think you want to be able to buy the world, you're gonna have to just get into a starter, okay? You're not gonna live there forever, which is why the purchase is so important, because there's a difference between buying the right thing and buying the wrong thing, and it can be very, very expensive. So there's still lots of opportunities, guys. There's plenty of areas that you could buy. It's not about expanding the search, it's really more about expanding your mind. So I hope this video was informative and, you know, educational and entertaining in some way. So get yourself qualified, get started in the game. In a few years, you're going to be able to make a better move and a better move and a better move. You're probably not going to stay at your job for the rest of your life, so don't think that you're going to stay at your house for the rest of your life too. So give us a shout if you're serious, and especially if you're qualified. We're happy to work with anyone and everyone, but we just got to make sure we get through those boring hurdles and steps that are necessary in order for you to actually be ready. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Please make sure you hit subscribe, give us a like, throw down a comment, do whatever the hell you want to do. Just make sure you get yourself qualified before you give us a shout here at Selling Toronto. We'll talk to you guys soon and see you in the next one. Bye for now. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially if we think about the pre-pandemic rental rates and home purchasing. My tooth hurts.